Shrinekeeper, tell me about the last guardians of Anor Londo, Dragon Slayer Ornstein and Executioner Smough.
Rest at the bonfire, and let me tell you the story of the last knights guarding the city of gods.
Ornstein was no ordinary knight. He was one of the four most trusted warriors of Gwyn, Lord of Sunlight, remembered in legend as the Four Knights of Gwyn. These knights were not simply soldiers, but champions who embodied Gwyn's will, chosen to stand at his side during the age when gods and dragons waged war for the fate of the world. Ornstein earned the title Dragon Slayer, for he was one of the few who could truly bring ruin to the immortal archdragons. Clad in resplendent golden armor, shaped in the image of a lion, the very symbol of courage and dominance, Ornstein stood out as a warrior without equal. His armor was not only ceremonial but also functional, crafted with divine enchantments to protect him against the overwhelming might of dragonfire. In his hands he wielded a weapon feared by dragons themselves, a mighty cross-spear, so sharp and so deadly that, when driven with Ornstein's immense strength, it could pierce even the stone scales of an archdragon. With a single thrust, Ornstein could drive the weapon deep into the body of his foe, and such was its force that a mere human struck by it would be sent flying through the air. To make his spear all the more lethal, it was imbued with Gwyn's own power, lightning, the natural weakness of the dragons. Where Gwyn's bolts cracked the skies and peeled scales from their hides, Ornstein's spear struck with the same divine fury. It was with this weapon and his unmatched skill that Ornstein fought side by side with Gwyn's firstborn son, a god of war whose name was later stricken from history. Together, they led the charge against the everlasting dragons. Their battles were remembered as miracles, passed down to the warriors of sunlight, the covenant that carried the flame of their legacy. In these tales, Ornstein was always present, the Dragon Slayer, the captain of the Four Knights, and the closest ally of Gwyn's heir. But even legends fade, and the victories of the gods came at a price. When the dragons had been driven to near extinction and the Age of Fire was secured, Ornstein did not fade into obscurity. Instead, he stood at Gwyn's side as captain of his knights, a symbol of the gods' power and authority. Alongside Artorius the Abyss Walker, Hawkeye Gaw, and the deadly huntress Kiaran, Ornstein represented one of the four pillars of Gwyn's might. To each was given a ring, a sacred emblem tied to their role. Ornstein's was the Leo ring, a relic carved with the image of a lion, which strengthened his precise thrusting attacks, making his spear even deadlier in his hands. The Four Knights were more than simple warriors. They were legends in their own time, and Ornstein was at their head. Yet time is relentless. After Gwyn sacrificed himself to kindle the first flame, his pantheon of gods began to vanish. His firstborn son was stripped of divinity and exiled, his name erased from history. One by one, the deities of Anor Londo abandoned the city. Left behind in the great empty halls of Gwyn's once proud capital, Ornstein remained. For countless years, he lingered in the forsaken city, stationed within the great cathedral that housed the illusion of Guinevere. There he stood with Executioner Smough, a brutal and disgraced knight who had been denied a place among Gwyn's four champions. Together, Ornstein and Smough formed the last trial for any undead who would dare to claim an audience with the gods. They were the final challenge, the ultimate guardians of Anor Londo. A test of strength to determine whether the chosen undead was worthy to inherit Gwyn's legacy. To face Ornstein and Smough was to face two legends of very different kinds. To face Ornstein and Smough was to face two legends of very different kinds. Ornstein, the disciplined dragon slayer, and Smough, the savage executioner. Alone, either one would be a daunting foe. Together, they became infamous. A test spoken of in hushed tones by all who dared set foot in Lordran. And it was not just brute force they wielded. Ornstein's mastery of lightning made him one of the few beings in existence who still carried the divine spark of Gwyn's power into battle. But Ornstein's legend does not end in the Cathedral of Anor Londo. For all his loyalty, centuries of waiting weighed heavily upon him. The halls grew empty, the gods departed, and the Age of Fire waned. Eventually, even Ornstein, the steadfast captain of Gwyn's knights, could no longer bear the silence. He abandoned his post, leaving Smough, the disgraced executioner, as sole guardian of the cathedral. The Dragon Slayer's armor and ring remained behind, relics of his service, preserved by Gwyndolin to uphold the illusion of divine strength. But Ornstein himself was gone, vanishing into lands unknown. What drove him to leave? The answer lies in the exile of Gwyn's firstborn, the nameless king, the god of war, Ornstein's closest companion during the Age of Dragons. Stripped of divinity and erased from history, the nameless king was cast out of Anor Londo. Yet Ornstein, bound by loyalty even beyond duty, is said to have gone in search of him. This journey would become the final chapter of Ornstein's tale. The Dragon Slayer knight who once fought beside gods, now wandering the world in pursuit of a forgotten king. Some believe he found his master in distant lands, fighting once more at his side against gods and dragons alike. Others claim he never succeeded, his story ending only in rumor and myth.
So Ornstein and Anor Londo isn't really him.
That is correct.
And what about Smough? What became of him?
I will get to his story now. He was a bit rough. Smough was the royal executioner of Anor Londo, serving directly under the gods. He wielded a massive, ritual hammer and wore grotesque, heavily reinforced armor that emphasized both his physical power and his monstrous reputation. Known for his disturbing zeal, Smough took pleasure in carrying out executions, often described as eerily gleeful while performing his duties. According to in-game records and item descriptions, he had a habit of crushing the bones of his victims beneath his hammer and incorporating them into his meals. This gruesome practice may have influenced the hammer's unique property of absorbing the life force of those it struck, making it a weapon both feared and lethal. Smough aspired to join the prestigious Four Knights of Gwyn, the elite warriors who served as the gods' protectors. However, his monstrous habits and violent temperament made him incompatible with the ideals of honor, discipline, and restraint expected of the Four Knights. As a result, he was shunned and feared, never earning a place among them despite his formidable skill. Following the linking of the First Flame, Gwyn's firstborn son was dethroned and exiled, and many of the deities abandoned Anor Londo, leaving the city largely deserted. Smough remained behind alongside Dragon Slayer Ornstein, tasked with guarding the cathedral where Princess Guinevere resided. Together, they became the ultimate challenge for any undead seeking the Lordvessel. Entry into Anor Londo required surviving the deadly Sen's fortress, ringing the bells of awakening and proving oneself worthy to the gods. Within the cathedral, Smough and Ornstein were the final trial before gaining an audience with Guinevere.
Smough's relationship with Ornstein, while not fully detailed in the records, reflects a combination of loyalty and practical partnership. Ornstein, embodying the ideals of discipline and divine service, complemented Smough's raw power and brutality. Their cooperation was essential to the defense of Anor Londo, as each balanced the other's strengths and weaknesses. Smough's role was to deliver devastating punishment to those who threatened the city, while Ornstein provided precision, speed, and strategic combat skill. Even as all other knights and deities abandoned Anor Londo, Smough remained steadfast. Gwyndolin eventually recognized his unwavering loyalty and granted him the formal title of knight, making him the cathedral's official guardian. Smough continued to hold this post until his death at the hands of a capable undead, who defeated him and gained access to Guinevere and the Lordvessel. After his death, Smough's ritual hammer was preserved by Gwyndolin as a relic of his service. It remained safeguarded in Gwyndolin's manor, and later became part of the history of Irithyll of the Boreal Valley, which rose from the ruins of Anor Londo. Through this preservation, Smough's legacy endured, remembered as the final executioner and loyal sentinel of a city abandoned by the gods, whose devotion and monstrous nature marked him as one of the most infamous figures in Anor Londo's history. And so ends the tale of Ornstein and Smough, two of Anor Londo's most formidable guardians. One, the disciplined dragon slayer, embodying loyalty and precision. The other, the monstrous executioner, feared for his brutality, yet unwavering in service. Together, they stood as the city's final defense, a trial for any who sought the favor of the gods. Though their fates were sealed by the chosen undead, their legacy endures, etched into the halls of Anor Londo, remembered as a testament to devotion, power, and the thin line between heroism and monstrosity.